people starting to file in, just checking a few things on our end to make sure everything is set up and ready to go. It looks like the Board of Trustees will get started here in just a second. I'll make sure this thing is up and running. So we're good to go. As soon as they come on the screen, in fact, I'll show you that this is going to be on here, which they actually just sent it live. So let me share my screen and we should be good. I'll mute for a lot of this, guys, just so you can watch it and listen to what's being said. I do have some thoughts as we get going before they get started, as Adelson dropped some tidbits on the cost to get out. You know, we heard yesterday that it would be under $100 million. Some people said significantly under $100 million. That number has come out to be $75 million.
Meeting ID.
I'll shut up.
So we can give it another couple minutes. I think we're still waiting on a couple people.
Yeah.
Thank you. For everyone who has not met Meg Urive is an attorney in my office who works with Michael very closely. You can congratulate her or send your condolences, whatever you would like. In case that's not enough, she also handles a lot of public records for us. So athletics and public records are her profile. So if anyone wants to send coffee, chocolate, anything, she does a lot.
And any or all. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Meg.
All right, I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to the Florida State University Board of Trustees meeting. Thank you all for being here with us today. I'm going to now ask Carolyn Egan to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trustee Alvarez?
Here.
Trustee Ballard?
Here.
Trustee Birmingham? Trustee Bovair?
Here.
Chair Collins?
Here.
Vice Chair De Las Cuevas Diaz?
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Here.
Trustee Henderson?
Here.
Trustee Jones? He may join us in a few moments. He was coming from another meeting, but we'll watch and note his attendance if he's able to join. Trustee Roth?
Here.
Trustee Sargent?
Here.
Trustee Thiel? I understand he was planning to attend, so if he joins us, we'll note that in the record as well. Trustee Weatherford?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. I begin our meeting with a reminder to board members about our ethics policy and obligations imposed by that policy in Florida law. Trustees are public officers of the state of Florida who are invested with the public trust and appointed as fiduciaries of the university. The Board of Trustees ethics policy that governs our conduct requires us to disclose any conflicts of interest present for any trustee, trustee's family member, or trustee's business associates, as those terms are defined by the policy. Having reviewed the agenda for today's meeting and having had the opportunity to consult with General Counsel and the ethics officer about any potential actual or perceived conflict, does any trustee wish to disclose any matter that may impact his or her ability to discuss or vote on any agenda item? I'm looking for hands. I don't see any. We're good. Next, we will hear public comments. I'd like to remind everyone to please limit your remarks to no more than 3 minutes to give all those interested an opportunity to speak. Do we have anyone wishing to speak today?
We have no one wishing to speak on public comment.
Okay. Our first agenda item is going to be brought forward by General Counsel Egan. General Counsel Egan.
Sure. Before I get started, I would like to note that I see that Trustee Thiel and Trustee Jones have joined us, so all trustees are present.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, following our agenda, I would like to notify the board that pursuant to Section 286.011, subsection 8, Florida statutes, that I, as the board's counsel, would like to have a session concerning the litigation in matters of Florida State University versus Atlantic Coast Conference, Leon County case number 2023 CA 002860, and ACC versus Florida State University Board of Trustees, currently pending in Mecklenburg County, case number 23CV0409185990.
Okay. In accordance with section 286.011 subsection 8, I certify that a closed attorney-client session shall commence with the following persons in attendance. Myself, Peter Collins, Vivian De Las Cuevas Diaz, our vice chair, trustee Maximo Alvarez, trustee Ballard, trustee Jackson Mover, trustee Bridget Birmingham, trustee George Gonzalez, trustee Jim Henderson, trustee Peter Jones, trustee Justin Roth, trustee Deborah Sargent, trustee John Thiel, and trustee Drew Weatherford, as well as President Richard McCullough as the Chief Executive Officer of Florida State University, attorneys for FSU Carolyn Egan, David Ashburn, John Londa, Barbara Melly, Peter Rush, and Meg Uribe, and court reporter Iris Cooper. The session is projected to last approximately 1 hour in total. At the conclusion of this session, the meeting will be reopened to members of the public. No action or vote will be taken during the closed session, and matters to be discussed during the closed session shall be limited to settlement negotiations or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures. The section 286.011 subsection 8 session is reported to commence at 12, we'll call it 12:05. Upon conclusion of the closed session, this meeting will be reopened to the public. The time of termination of the closed session shall be read into the record, and the session will be reopened to the public. Ms. Uribe, please confirm once the session has been closed to the public.
Thank you, Chairman Collins. Give me 1 second to close the session and then I will confirm.
All right. So while that's closed, as soon as they start talking again, I'll mute. But hopefully my mic, yeah, I just got to tell you, NFL ZN. Yeah, I'm bouncing around, drinking my diet or my iced coffee. So I just didn't want that coming through. Once they reopen, once they start talking, you'll certainly hear them, speak, and I'll shut up. But obviously with attorney-client stuff, they're gonna black it out a little bit. The biggest news out of this, and I think the Board of Trustees stuff is pretty interesting, and that's why we're live streaming it, just so you have a place to watch it. But Adelson coming out and saying that to leave in, whatever it is, 2030 is around $75 million. And I'm sorry that I'm looking down. I want to read this and not get stuff wrong. Is insane. She followed that up by talking about how it's $18 million a year. I think that was a big question. More details emerging from the settlement between the ACC, FSU, and Clemson via sources. Exit fee is expected to drop by $18 million each year through 29-30. After that exit fee drops to $75 million, any existing team will retain its media rights. That's written a little bit weirdly. My only question is, if you leave in 2028, do you still retain your media rights? I think so. The way she writes it kind of implies that you would only retain them after leaving, if you left after the 29-30 season or calendar year, not necessarily season. But I think she's just kind of writing that weirdly. I think that you could also read that as anytime you leave, you retain your media rights. $18 million a year, I think backs that up. And I saw a couple other people say that it's about $165 million to leave tomorrow. And I certainly don't expect Florida State to pay $165 million to leave. But when we first talked about this, we talked about 150 to 200 million being a really good price. When you thought about how the fact that, they were estimating the media rights value at 570. And that was the number that came out back in December of 23 was you were going to pay $570 million if you wanted to leave. That's a number that got tossed around in court even. So for it to be less than, just right at 165. Now, again, I don't anticipate Florida State signs a check tomorrow for $165 million. It'll be interesting to see if they talk about this at all going forward. Probably not. I'd assume most of this is just about dropping the lawsuit. But man, the idea of getting to 2030 and only having to pay $75 million. I wonder if the Seminole boosters, right? Like they've got all these programs and all these funds and all these drives where they try and raise money, this vision of excellence thing and, the new stadium renovations and the football only facility. And they put these things out like, hey, we're raising money for XYZ. If they were to start a drive tomorrow, which if anybody at the boosters is listening, here's your hint, right? Here's your marketing hint. If they were to start one tomorrow, how quickly could they raise $75 million? Like how quickly because I think people, I don't know. Do people like giving to building projects? I don't know. Do you like giving to like the new football only facility? Do you like giving to the new stadium renovations? Half the people hate the renovations anyway, because they're impacted. Do you like giving money to, I don't know, buyouts or anything like that? Like not necessarily, but if they put together a fund that said, hey, donate here, and this is our once this hits $75 million, we're out. They would get there so much faster than 2030. It could be a 5-year campaign, but anyway, hopefully that's something that what they should do. Yeah, I see George call it the auxiliary champion's choice. Yeah, call it the Achieve Excellence. Like that's the ACC's tagline. Call it the Achieve Excellence Fund, and we're going to achieve that excellence by not being in this conference anymore. So the Seminole Boosters, that is a 100% free of charge idea. Like we're not, like Double Fries No Slaw is not charging you for that idea of what we should name this campaign. But imagine how quickly you would raise that money. I think your big donors, your big boosters that want to see what's best for FSU, I think they'd be more willing to give to that than they would to give to a building campaign. That's just my guess, right? That's if I had a choice of where the amount of funds that I can donate are pretty meager compared to what a lot of people can give. If I had $1,000 that I could give right now, would I rather it go to the football only facility or would I rather it go toward getting out of the ACC? I think most of you are like me, and maybe you've never donated to the boosters before. I'd imagine you would sign up to it. Give $20, give $50, give $100, right? How much does that matter in the grand scheme? I don't know. We have 18,000 subscribers. So if each one of you give, $10, we can start to make some pretty serious money for FSU, especially if you did that 10 months over the year and, whatever, right? So, or 12 months over the year, $20 a month, you could start to add that up pretty quickly. So I don't know, that again, free of charge. $75 million to get out in 2030, and then it backs up $18 million additional each year. Another question I would have is, we've talked about this, how much of a gap will there be between what Florida State ends up bringing in and where the SEC and the Big Ten are? If that gap is more than $18 million, you'd have to imagine that you need to seriously consider. Now, if you have a landing spot, right, a big component of this, and we'll talk with Doug about it when we record later today. I think we're recording at about 3:30, so that should be in your feeds by about 5 p.m. A big question would be, do you have, does the Big Ten and SEC want you right now? That's not really the question. Does Fox and ESPN want to pay more money for you to go to those conferences before 2030? Right? Do they want to pay more in 2028 when they understand that they could just get you in 2030? To me, that's the bigger question. The Big Ten wants Florida State. I mean, there's no question about it, right? Like you can get into it with all the trolls on Twitter or YouTube or wherever. That doesn't matter. ESPN doesn't want to lose Florida State. How much does the SEC really care? I don't know. The SEC, the Big Ten, not the ones calling the shots, right? The companies signing the billion-dollar media checks are the ones calling the shots here. And so my question would be, does Florida State have a landing spot in the Big Ten? I believe so. Does the Big Ten want to pay, does Fox want to pay extra money in 2028 that they could just pay in 2030? To me, that's the bigger stimulus of whether or not Florida State leaves before 2030. If Florida State's in this conference past 2030, I don't know. Maybe the ACC has put us on like a 50% share, just give Florida State and Clemson half the money each and then go. That would be the only way that I really see them staying past that. If the gap between Florida State and Clemson is $5 million, Florida State, Clemson, and the SEC is $5 million in 2028, then financially, maybe it doesn't make sense to leave a year early. Now, would I rather be in the SEC or Big Ten, even if it was a $5-10 million loss, like, of course, right? Like, I'd rather be in a better conference, give more opportunity, have that for recruiting, have a better shot at the playoffs, this, that, and the other, right? Like, I get all that. But that is a question I think that somebody smarter than me, somebody, I saw Immaculate in here. I don't know if he's still in here. I don't know if that's something that the Wild Ute could put together a spreadsheet on, like the expected revenue from Florida State in 2027 compared to what the Big Ten and the SEC are guaranteed to make. What's the expected revenue for Florida State in 2029 compared to what the SEC and the Big Ten are going to make? Again, if that gap is larger than 19 million, then you should probably go. If it's less, then maybe you've got a thought there or a question of how things work. And ultimately, it comes down to not necessarily what Florida State wants, not necessarily what the SEC wants, not necessarily what the Big Ten wants. What will Fox and ESPN pay for? In my mind, I don't know that Fox would pay an additional $75 million for Florida State to come a year early, right? That's just where my mind's at. I'd love to be wrong about that. I'd love for the Fox to say, yep, we'll take them in 2028. We'll take them 2 years early. We'll pay the additional money for them to come over early. Even though we don't really need to, we could just do it with our next TV contract. That's kind of where my mind is at. What I would guess happens. 2030 just makes the most sense because that's when Fox has to redo their TV contract anyway. It's just an easier transition over, and it's the cheapest price for Florida State. But if in 2029, Florida State is at a $30 million gap between the SEC and the Big Ten, Florida State might push a little harder. So those are some of my thoughts. And I talked to somebody else about this today too. Would you even take a smaller share? Would you take a 50% share or a 75% share, knowing it was going to be less money, but securing your seat at the table? There'd probably be some benefit to that, especially if you were making more money every year going forward. If Florida State can make $15 million more a year in the ACC, and they won't bank it because that's just not how it works. You're not taking that money and putting it in a pot. You're going to spend that money back in your program. But if they're able to take an additional $15 or so million a year over the next 5 years, they're $75 million, right? So they certainly need to take care of their business, win games, stop sucking on the field. But the opportunity is certainly there. $75 million in the grand scheme, just not that big of a deal. I also wonder, like, the building projects that are going on, like, how long do those loans run? How could you finance some of this to get out a little bit earlier? So just some thoughts. We can read some comments. I'm going to take a sip of drink now that I've run my mouth for a minute. Hopefully this is not a super long break. I didn't know they were going to do this break at the beginning. But if this is truly an hour, I'm going to be annoyed because I didn't prepare an hour's worth of sitting here and rambling. But I will look through some comments and stuff. We'll get some people in here. Got an idea of when this happens. It's going to be connected to what comes with the governance situation. Yeah, Immaculate and I talked about that a lot over on College Football Addiction, just the the autonomous four conferences, the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and the ACC. You can go check that out on College Football Addiction. Shoot, you could do it right now while we're waiting on them to come back. Get out of the ACC. Thorne, I think they could raise it in a week. Yeah, I don't know if a week, but I think you would immediately, like, you'd have some big donors immediately throw like $2, $3, $5 million in, right? Like, immediately you'd start to get that thing up pretty high. Guaranteed spot in the Big Ten. Yeah, if you had a guaranteed spot, in the Big Ten for 2026, you would announce before the August 15-ish deadline. So I kind of agree with that. See, Rosa. Josh, they wouldn't get a full allotment until 2030. Yeah, I mean, that's so, Josh, that's kind of my concern too. And I believe in the value. But would you, if you're Florida State, would you take a 75% allotment? Right? Would you take a smaller share just to guarantee your spot at the table? Because it's a smaller share on the media revenue side, but then, you factor in the college football playoff money. The Big Ten's always going to get 4 teams in. The SEC is always going to get 4 teams in. There's that side of things too. We look at this a lot from the media side of things, and Florida State and the ACC are certainly lacking when it comes to the media payouts. But the ACC is lacking when it comes to the college football playoff payouts too. And they're lacking when it comes to the number of seats at the table. Not only does every ACC team make less because of the way that they've signed this college football playoff agreement, they make less per team, but they also have less teams in. So a typical ACC team is making about 30% of what a typical Big Ten team makes, whether they make the playoff or not. Obviously, you get a little bit more money if you make the playoff for travel and things like that. But you're making a lot less money from the playoff too, which those numbers are fairly astronomical too. So even if you had to take a 50 or, and I don't know if a quarter makes sense, like if you're getting a 25% share, I don't know if you'd take a 0% share for 2 years. That might hurt you pretty significantly to lose that 80 million. You might as well just wait and pay 75 in 2030. But would you take a 75% share to get into 2 years early? Probably. I mean, I would think so. I think that financially makes sense to guarantee your spot at the table. Do they have a landing spot? Sure, they would get a fair share immediately. Michael, same kind of idea there. Do you milk the ACC for money until 2030, or do you secure your seat at the table by paying more upfront? Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a balance, right? And it probably comes down to kind of what I've been saying, right? Like, not to belabor the point, but I'm just kind of going through the comments and replying to you guys here. I think it's based on what Fox is willing to do for you. How much does Fox, I mean, how much does Fox want to guarantee that they get Florida State versus how much does ESPN want to guarantee that they don't lose Florida State as a property? And so it's a good position for Florida State to be in. And people will argue all the time, oh, the Big Ten wants this or the SEC doesn't want this. I'm telling you, they don't matter, right? Like they just don't. What does Fox want? What do the people signing the $1 billion media checks, what do they want? And so if you're Fox, is there an incentive to bring Florida State over a couple of years early so that you can take them away from ESPN? If you're ESPN, is there an incentive to give Florida State a bigger share early to keep them in your bubble, in your network, in the SEC, as opposed to going away? Those are maybe the Game of Thrones type games they're probably being played on the back end. If they win 10 games a year from now until 2030, they'll get a full share for sure, I think. Yeah, like in 2030, they'll get a full share wherever they go. I don't have any doubts about that. Even if they don't win 10 games a year, I think they'll be fine because they'll still bring in plenty of eyeballs. Could FSU use ESPN and Fox against each other? Yeah, Michael. So yeah, you basically just described exactly. I can't keep up with the comments as fast enough, but you described what I was saying. Is there a benefit to one of those TV networks bringing somebody in early so that you don't lose out on them? I think so. Yes, they get a full share in 2030, but why wait? I think at that point, it just becomes a numbers game, right? How much are you, if you're going to lose $40 million by not only the cost of your buyout, but also the, reduced share, I think that would be the why wait, right? Michael, they will get a full share in a new conference once deals in play 2030. I agree. Milk the ACC. Let's move down to Kevin. Get out ASAP if you take a smaller share at first. The long-term stability. Yeah, just know it. Like the uncertainty, the not knowing would probably be, it's worth something. Is it worth $100 million? Maybe not, right? Like if you were going to lose, if you were out in 2027 and from 2027 to 2030, between what you have to pay the ACC and a reduced share, if you were to lose $100 million over that 3 or 4 years, to me, that's probably not worth it. I don't know FSU's finances to be able to give you a solid answer on that. But if it was only $30 million over 3-4 years, that seems like it would be worth it, right? Again, I'm speculating because I don't really know what the finances look like, but I think there's a hard number where you'd say like, here's where it is worth it, here's where it's not worth it. Kevin, I appreciate you. Sean, what's the deal with 2030? I thought the grant of rights was up until 2036. Great question. So with this settlement, with this renegotiation, the grant of rights does still run until 2036, but we have a number tied to essentially buying your rights back. And if Florida State wants to buy their rights back and leave the ACC in 2030, that number is rumored and sourced to be $75 million. Whereas a year and a half ago, when we thought, what check would we have to write today to get out? We believe that number to be like $570 million. So you get about halfway done. It delays the inevitable for the ACC, and it takes it down to that 75 number. So that's the difference between 2030, 2036. The grant of rights still runs that length, like for, not to pile on crappy colleges, but for Wake Forest, well, not college, but just, sports program or whatever. For Wake Forest, the grant of rights still runs through 2036. And any year from now until 2036, they could certainly buy their way out. I just don't know if they have an appetite to spend that kind of money. So that's why 2030 is such a big number. 2030 also a big number because that's when the Big 10 and the Big 12's media deals are up. You would assume that they renegotiate and new teams enter the fold for either or both of them. SEC's is up a year or two later. Wouldn't shock me if the SEC renegotiated theirs early just because of the changes that are going to be happening at that time. Had an ad pop up while you're talking about my comment. Sorry. You should be able to, Immaculate, I know it's been 5 minutes, 10 minutes since you commented that, but you should be able to just back up. Blame YouTube for the ads. YouTube's ad, listen, I mean, it is what pays my mortgage, so I won't complain about them too much. YouTube ads, the more people that are in, the more ads YouTube puts on. They're not idiots on this stuff. So, Michael, I do think that DCC could add money to the pot sooner, especially if Fox can launch their own DTC before 2030. Yeah, I mean, the money is there, right? Like, and the value that Florida State's going to bring, a Florida State in Miami, a Florida State in North Carolina, a Florida State in Clemson. Yeah, the money would certainly be there. It's just whether or not, all of these networks want to do what's best for them, right? Like, if they could get Florida State at a 75% share, then that makes all their other presidents happy because they're gonna get more money from this as well. So, the money is there. They could certainly do it. Do they want to? Do they want a nickel and dime for everything they can? I mean, absolutely. And so that's why Florida State probably is doing their best legwork on the back end to try and get the most out of any potential deal that is possible. Depending on the college football playoff deal for sure. Yep. I think that's a big part that's overlooked in a lot of this. I think that we all focus, and something that I have tried to talk about quite a bit, we all talk about the media rights portion of this, which is huge, but people leave out the college football playoff money. Does anybody have, and I'll even look it up, CFP payouts per conference? CFP revenue distribution, 12 team. Since we're live, we can just kind of do this. We'll be all right. All right, I don't see. I am looking this up, and I know we're live, but we got some time before they come back, so. Immaculate, if you know this, I may just SEC Big Ten to cash in. Yeah, so this was about a year ago. So things will change for 2026 with expansion and going to 12 teams. The SEC and the Big Ten. Listen, I literally just had would each receive about $21 million annually, while the ACC makes about $13 million and the Big 12 makes about $12 million. So you're talking about $8 million just like for what we just had, right? And how much does that change in 2026? Is it larger than $8 million of a gap? Is it $12 million? Well, shoot, if you're making $12 million just in college football playoff revenue, I mean, that eats 2/3 of your pay, your buyback for the ACC right there, right? So then you're looking at a $6 million gap, and that's just from the college football playoff, not let alone what you would be making in revenue from the conference. Now, factored into that or thought into that too is how much more are you going to make in the ACC? If you could theoretically, you got paid out $41 million last year. The SEC got paid out like close to 70. If they were able to make up that difference and you were making $70 million in the ACC, and then you're getting another $12 million from the college football playoff committee, and you're only at a $6 million deficit. Yeah, at a $6 million deficit per year, I think you should leave. I think if a conference will take you, I think you should go. If that gap is $25 million, I think it'd be hard to justify leaving for that unless you got really close to the 2030 number, 2028, 2029. So the college football playoff money is huge, and I don't think enough people talk about that. So also wouldn't wait for all the other programs to jump ship at the same time and then have more to compete with for Power 2 spots. Yeah, I agree with that. Like there's an advantage of going first, and I don't think Florida State would drag their feet here, Kevin. They've been so proactive in all of this. They were the first ones to really call out unequal revenue sharing, which again is what they ultimately wanted back in early 2023. But yeah, it wouldn't be a great situation if the SEC was going to add 2 and they took UNC and NC State because they're tied together legally. And then the Big Ten took Miami and Notre Dame, and then you're sitting there just like twiddling your thumbs like, all right, well, that didn't go the way we wanted. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some security in it for sure. Jacob, what's up? Sean, if the grant of rights isn't up until 2030, I think we answered that. Because the media reports on this, there isn't a grant of rights cost. There's just the exit fee and the rights go with the school after they pay that. Yep. Excuse me, which was a big part, Immaculate, of the lawsuit. Was trying to figure out that number, trying to figure out, hey, what will we owe? What is, what do we have to give back if this is the case? Christopher, Big 10, SEC, Big 12 cannot say they want FSU and Clemson. It's against the rules. Yeah, and that's why they haven't, right? No conference commissioner is dumb enough to say that they want it, but to think that it's also why a coach can't say, I want this player off of this other roster. But an agent can talk to a collective member, an agent could theoretically talk to Ingram Smith and say, if I was to enter the portal or my player was to enter the portal, what kind of offer do you think Florida State would make him, right? And so, yeah, you can't have tampering either in not only the conference scheme, but also down to the player scheme, but it happens, right? So, yeah, Tony Petitti can't come out and say, hey, Michael Alford, we would pay you this, but the back channeling is certainly happening. And if it wasn't happening and Florida State was just doing all this, on a hope and a prayer, then I would question the leadership more than I ever thought I would. So yeah, no, you're right. But Tater King, when this all gets settled, this is a good one. Can we go back to hating FSU coming from the Clemson fans? Listen, I've never hated Clemson like I do Florida and Miami. And I think Clemson fans would say that too. You don't hate Florida State the same way you hate South Carolina. Maybe it's because we have another natural rival in state, so we just don't have enough hate in our hearts. But I think Florida State fans, I don't speak for everybody. I think Florida State fans, it's hard to hate Clemson, for me anyway. First of all, they're the nicest people in the world. Anytime you go to a game up at Clemson, they're so welcoming. Hey, we hope you have a good time. Hope you enjoy this. So it's hard to hate them in general because they have nicer fans than both Florida and Miami. Miami, obviously, way worse. But yeah, with all this that we've gone through over the last 2 years, there has been a bonding. It's the Bloods and the Crips holding up the handkerchiefs, right? Or bandanas. Handkerchiefs makes me sound 80. Yeah, maybe we can go back to a little bit of hate, but I think we'll always have a little bit of respect there. So, but I've never really hated Clemson like that. So the ACC got their opt-in from ESPN, and that seems to have given them the future security. Yeah, a lot of people have asked Immaculate, why would these other presidents agree to this? Why would Wake's president and Syracuse and Boston College, why would agree to this? Well, one, it's not just straight payouts for Florida State, right? Or Clemson or Miami or North Carolina. You have the opportunity to earn it. If Wake Forest starts just winning games like crazy and they go 10 wins the next 5 years, they're going to be put in better TV slots. If they're a ranked on ranked matchup is going to bring in eyeballs. Nobody would have thought Missouri would be a TV draw, but the more Missouri is ranked and the more you have ranked SEC matchups, whether it's Missouri playing A&M or Missouri playing Alabama or Missouri playing just whoever, that opportunity exists for them. The other side of it is if ESPN tells you hey, sign this extension or we're not signing this extension unless you all agree to this, that's ultimately why it got signed. You either don't have a TV deal or you give Florida State and Clemson what they want. And so I think ESPN was very likely instrumental in this happening. What do you expect payout difference to be between Big Ten, SEC, and FSU from the ACC? What is it currently? Currently, it's $25 million difference. Immaculate, I don't know if you have a better answer for that or not. But currently, I think the SEC got paid out. The ACC got paid out $41 million. SEC payouts 2024. So between both, So right now, like 12, 13 million, it escalates pretty aggressively to where it's like $30 million towards the end of the agreement, towards the 2030 year. And projections have said that Florida State and Clemson, or really any teams in the ACC that kind of qualify for this, could make up to $15 to $20 million extra a year. So if that's the case, and there's a $30 million gap, like in theory, if you qualify and earn the money, like Florida State can't keep losing games the way that they are, you're looking at maybe a $10 million gap, best case scenario, towards the end of this, which isn't, I mean, it's not great, but it's certainly not horrible, right? That's media only. You're still losing quite a bit of money when it comes to the college football playoff and other things. Ticket sales, you know, if you were in an SEC schedule tomorrow, how much better would ticket sales be? You look at Florida State's home schedule and you got Bama and Miami on it, which are great. Don't get me wrong. Like those are going to be two very well attended, sold out games, but on the home schedule, you also have East Texas A&M. You also have Kent State. You also have, who else on there? Virginia Tech's not terrible home schedule. Pitt, you know, but what if you replace that with like a South Carolina and you replaced another one with like a Tennessee and you replaced another one with like an Ole Miss, right? How much more would you make there? So yeah, there's opportunity cost as well. But just to answer the question, payout difference right now, 10 to 12 million, not an insane amount from media only. But then you add on that $8 million from the college football playoff that we talked about there. So it's now 18 million. That's a pretty big gap in and of itself. I think there's a chance it could be around 30 million, but the ACC maybe can make up 15 to 20 of that. So we'll see. Not so ironclad. Don't let the Monty show see this. Listen, I did a segment with Drake over at Locked On Big 12 on college football addiction about, you know, Monty talking about and I've never, listen, I'm not dissing somebody. I've never watched their show. So I don't know, but Drake went in pretty hard on Monty for the Super League stuff that he was saying last week. So I don't have any take on that. I don't think it happens, but whatever. Michael, back to Immaculate. The settlement seems to suggest there's no longer a rights issue. The conference is letting go of that. Yeah. I mean, the idea, excuse me, the idea that the conference was going to somehow retain their rights, after you leave is hilarious. And it was one of the better points that Florida State made. Just not really realistic. So, all right, I'll shut up. It looks like they're getting back on. I'll try and go through some more comments. I appreciate you guys for the comments that we got to share and stuff. They're on mute, but it looks like they're going back.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
I can confirm that the webcast has been restarted and the meeting has been reopened to the public at this time. Chairman Collins.
Okay, so I certify that the attorney-client session has been terminated and the public meeting is reopened at 12:36. Well, hello again, trustees. Thank you for the discussion. As you know, we have been in discussion with the ACC for several weeks and months now, and we feel that we have come to a mutually agreeable settlement. As I understand it, the ACC has met earlier today and voted to approve the settlement. And I believe that Clemson is meeting at the same time we are. And I believe that they are going to vote to approve the settlement. I'm going to ask Carolyn Egan to go through the terms of the settlement for the board, and then we'll have a discussion.
Give me just a moment to get my screen situated. It's not a meeting until somebody awkwardly shares their screen. All right. Does everyone have the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're going to see represents a large paradigm shift in revenue sharing and conference exit with media rights from the world that we existed in before. It won't be as much of a surprise, given that our friends in the media have been for the last 20 surprise, but I would ask that everybody pay close attention to the details as we present them. I'll walk you through the two aspects of the proposal and then ask for a vote of the board. So the first aspect is revenue sharing. This slide compares the current revenue sharing model, which is media revenue shared equally among the original member institutions, regardless of performance, brand, or viewership. If we move forward with the current proposal, the ACC would move toward a proportional viewership model on the basis of television viewership, A majority share of the base media rights would be placed into a viewership pool that would be distributed via 5-year rolling ratings average viewership model. Yeah, that's important to us. That is very important that these are media rights and that they are earned by viewership. The Success Initiative, which I think people have followed in the past year since it was put in place, would continue to exist in this model. So this would be in addition to the Success Initiative that's currently in place. The viewership pool would be effective for the upcoming year, so we would immediately get to work on enhancing revenues through the viewership pool. Very important also is that it incentivizes program investment and on-field success. All of us know that in the push for resources in athletics, on-field success is in part determined by investing in your programs, and we're ready to do that, and this enables us to do that. Anyone who's watched any of our meetings in the past year knows that FSU has dug so heavily into our athletics finances, studied so closely the future of collegiate athletics and what that looks like, and that we've studied our own viewership. Not only have we looked outward at the landscape of collegiate athletics, but we've looked at what is FSU, what is FSU's brand, what does FSU bring to the media marketplace. So we have a very tight grip on what our brand is and what our viewership numbers are. And we know that regardless, year over year, our viewership is steady for decades. People watch us. Maybe they watch us, maybe they hate watch us, but they watch. Any questions on the viewership pool?
No.
Okay, the second aspect is withdrawal from the conference. As we all have been talking about for the past year, it used to be a monetary formula to withdraw from the conference. There was a fee, but what did that fee entail? We don't know. The return of the media rights, I think it's fair to just call it disputed at this point. We did not agree about what the grant of rights meant, what the effect was, and it was disputed. Under this system, upon notice of withdrawal and payment of the withdrawal fee, a school who is exiting the conference would exit with its media rights unencumbered. That number is established for the upcoming year, and it reduces over time. It's been widely reported in the media in the last 24 hours. It does reduce over time. This provides clarity and certainty for each school to determine what its best fit is. And if there is a school that decides to withdraw, there's just certainty and clarity that wasn't there before. Is there any questions on the withdrawal?
Do you have any questions? Any trustees have any questions about the withdrawal?
None.
Okay. So we need a board vote with regard to the essential parameters of the settlement, authorizing the essential parameters, giving president authority to take actions necessary to affect the settlement, and with authority to make any necessary adjustments within the parameters approved by the board. This does take, it's a simple majority, takes 7 votes for approval. And what I will do is I'll ask for a motion, I'll ask for a second, and then we'll open it up for any further discussion. So can I get a motion to approve the essential parameters of the settlement?
Motion to approve.
Second, John Thiel.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any questions, any comments?
I would like to add one thing. Chairman, I've been notified that Clemson has ended their meeting on a positive note and authorized the president to complete the settlement and has adjourned their meeting.
Okay, great. All right, so all in favor of the settlement, or let's say it this way, anybody opposed to the settlement? Okay, seeing none, it passes. So Carolyn, as I understand it, we're probably going to finalize all of these documents, and everybody's agreed that it's going to be within 30 days to get all the legal documents done and finalized, but that this is planned. All of these changes are going to kick in this coming year. There's no delay on that, but we do need some time to finish up the final agreements, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. President, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Again, I so appreciate all the hard work that got put into this. Couldn't have happened without Chair Collins, who has just been a great partner, part of the team, and and helped us in so many ways. Carolyn, amazing job. She did a lot of the heavy lifting and interfacing, and AD Alford as well. So the four of us spent a lot of time together, and as I said before, it wasn't just a simple conversation between two people. And we have even between with the ACC, but also the four of us often didn't necessarily, we have to work things out, and it was a great process, and I'm so proud of how we were able to manage through all that, and I just appreciate our attorneys were phenomenal, and I won't call them out the name because I'll probably mess it up, but you all were amazing. I'll maybe leave that to Carolyn to thank them. You all did everything right as far as I could tell, and really helped us to break down some of the ironclad nature of some of this, and helped us get leverage to which was helpful not only for Florida State but for the entire ACC league. And I think you deserve a lot of credit. So I just appreciate that so much. And with that, I think I'll.
I will open it up to any other comments from the trustees.
Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, Trustee Weatherford.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I told you in the closed session I was going to leave my thank yous till the open session, because I think a mentor once told me that gratitude without the expression of gratitude is no gratitude at all. And I sincerely thank you for your leadership in all this, your passion and your boldness and your vision. We wouldn't be here without you. The same is true for the President McCullough, General Counsel Egan, AD Alford. I'm personally, as an alumni and an ex-athlete, just grateful for your willingness to step in and fight for our best interests. And I'm also just extremely grateful for Seminole Nation as a whole. I'm sure, like you, I got hundreds of emails and text messages and phone calls from friends and people I didn't know over the last 14 months, encouraging us in this journey. And I'm proud of where we've landed. You know, we made some commitments 14 months ago that we would do everything in our power to ensure that we could compete at the highest level. I think we've done that here. And, we also, made it clear that we were willing to seek, a new home if something drastically didn't change. But the good news is that things have drastically changed since we had that conversation for our benefit. And there's been a lot of work done. And so everything, what has happened within the ACC, which is incredible, to outside of the ACC and just college football in general, with revenue sharing, which I know we are fully committed to max out on, to $450 million of facilities that we're building. And so I just want Seminole Nation to know that the future is bright. I am extremely encouraged. And I'm confident that we will remain one of the top athletic brands in the country for decades to come. And I wasn't that confident 14 months ago. So I just commend the entire board, the entire organization for getting to where we are today. And net, I think it's a really great outcome for everybody involved.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments?
I just want to say thank you. I know there's been a lot of hard work for a lot of people. Nothing is perfect when you come to a settlement. So I know that for some of our fans, they had other ideas, but I know that with the hard work in the last 14 months and us thinking through, this is the right thing for Florida State at this time. And it gives us exactly what we need for our future. So thank you for all the hard work, for all of us here on the board. I know this has not been easy, but thank you for our lawyers, both in-house and out-house, because I know without them, we can't do this, and for Peter and the president and your leadership. So thank you. Glad to see this day come.
Thank you. I too want to thank the president. He's right. We didn't always all agree, all four of us, AD Alford and Carolyn, but we all agreed on one thing, that we had to do something, and it had to be a positive outcome for Florida State. And I agree. I share Drew's and Vivian's sentiments that, we're way better off than where we were 14 months ago, when we were being told we had no options. And now we have options, and we have a good fit, I think, for the conference as well. I think this is going to make the conference better. I think it's going to incentivize people in the conference to really invest, and for the conference to grow. So it's about Florida State for us, but it also is about the entire conference. But I'm just thankful for the president's leadership and Carolyn and Michael's leadership. I appreciate, like you said, the attorneys. And I appreciate you trustees. I mean, we can't really talk outside the sunshine. And, you have a passion for FSU just like I do. And it's frustrating at times to not be able to talk. And so I appreciate your trust that you have in me and put in me to help us get here. But it's really, it couldn't have happened without the group. And I would echo your sentiments, Drew, to the Seminole Nation. This is good for Florida State. This is really good for Florida State. And I know there's still a lot of people that don't have a lot of details, and those details most of them will come out. But when people learn more, and not just what they hear anecdotally on the internet, they'll agree that it's a good outcome for Florida State. We wouldn't be here today approving this if it wasn't a good outcome for Florida State. So anybody that thinks it's not is just dead wrong. And so I feel good as a Seminole today. I want to close it out. I want AD Alford to say a few words.
Peter, let me just say one thing. I'm sorry, I would be remiss to not thank AD Alford. I know it's been hard for him to keep us all on track and focus, and his historic knowledge has been amazing. So I didn't mean to forget him ever. So thank you.
Well noted.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, President. Thank you, Carolyn. I can tell you it's the four of us has been noted, has been tight together through this, and just great leadership by the President, Chairman Collins, the council of Carolyn Egan, for me, and just putting FSU forward. We started this path on what was best for not only FSU, but for the conference, as Chairman pointed out. And this really incentivizes everyone in our conference to have the opportunity to go out and choose a path. And that's what all we ever asked for, was for the opportunity for us to compete nationally amongst our peers. And it's also going to incentivize every team in the ACC and make the league better. It's going to draw more eyes to the league, which is very important. It's good for our media partners, and it's good for our conference. I want to thank the trustees for their support. It's a great day to be a Seminole, and I appreciate y'all's belief in our vision of where we're heading. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have any comment before we sign off? And wants to say something?
A big thank you, Peter. When you started describing this, and you and Michael several years ago, I can't believe you're going to be taking on the giant, but you did. So you believed in it and brought us there. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting, and I appreciate it. And you can get back to your days. And I took 2 days of a week last week and took part of your day today. So we're going to pledge not to do that for a little while. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Go
Thank
Noles.
you. Go Noles.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that's that. Let me get this shut off so I don't have something ringing in my in the back of my ears. I starred some of your comments, and then I'll go back and look through some more from while it was on. But yeah, all that's done. It went pretty much as expected. I think you guys can hear me, hopefully. I did read some pretty funny comments. Josh, TJ, for your own amusement, you should go check out certain Twitter. Some people just look for like Twitter, beef and lawsuits and stuff. So I won't say any names, but Josh refers to a certain Twitter account here. He just can't say he was wrong. A lot of us folks in the triangle seem not to be able to do so. Yeah, I've noticed that, and we'll have Doug on at 3:30. Doug's coming on Double Fries No Slaw to talk about this from a legal perspective. I'm just kind of giving you what I think is a non-legal perspective. We'll have Doug on today. That'll be live around 5 if he's coming on at 3:30. Yeah, a lot of people struggle to admit when they were wrong, and all we heard was ironclad, and there's, the ACC is never going to budge, and they've got no reason to budge. And so, the tone has certainly changed from the ACC will never budge, they have no reason to budge, this is a slam dunk case, to all of a sudden it is, well, the ACC caved, how could they? This was so slam dunk. Maybe it wasn't as slam dunk as you thought. Maybe these 18 ACC presidents didn't get it wrong. Maybe the ACC didn't get it wrong. Maybe Florida State and Clemson didn't get it wrong. Maybe you were wrong. And all of these presidents of these universities and these TV partners and the commissioner and everybody, maybe they knew a little bit more of what was going on than you did, right? Nobody can ever admit when they're wrong about something. So yeah, I have not taken a victory lap yet on Twitter. I don't know if and when that'll happen, but stay tuned. Seems like the grant of rights issue is getting dropped and it's just the exit fee. Maybe they knew it wouldn't hold up in court. Yeah, I thought that was, and we talked with Doug about this a lot, and I'll make sure to bring that up with him too. In fact, I'll write it in a note right now so that I don't forget. Rights argument in court, because I do want to get Doug's take on that. And again, that'll be live this afternoon on the channel. Well, not live, but it'll come out this afternoon on the channel, maybe around 5 p.m. or so. I thought that was one of FSU's better arguments in court, Kevin. The idea that you could leave a conference and somehow that conference could keep your media rights is just absurd, right? Like that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. That wasn't written very well. Now, I'll say this. In 2006, right, when this was all signed, a lot of these conferences had no, the ACC at that time didn't know that they were going to get lapped by the Big Ten and the SEC. So I'll give them a little bit of credit for that. But they didn't write that very well. But the idea that they would make an argument that you could somehow leave and not get your rights to go with you, is absurd. And so, yeah, I did think that was one of FSU's better arguments. And I do think that that's why they ultimately agreed to this. They could not risk Florida State paying the exit fee and being gone for $120 million and then going. So, yeah, I agree. That was a huge, huge win for Florida State in presenting that. Let's look at a couple more. Immaculate says the sliding scale for the exit amounts means some of these ACC schools are staying, may want to push out the schools to get more money. Yeah, I wonder too, right? If you know that you're kind of a bottom feeder in the ACC, right? Not trying to take shots at anybody, but if you know you're a bottom feeder and Florida State leaving a year earlier gets you a little bit more money, wouldn't you want them to leave a little bit earlier, right? As long as you stay up, the ACC stays above the composition clause, which I think is 15 teams, right? As long as they stay over that, wouldn't you want some teams to leave so that you could get some of that money? Especially if the ACC backfills it with the Tulanes and USFs and other programs that they're talking about, Memphis, whoever. Yeah, you'll make more money in a short window. But if Florida State and Clemson and UNC leave earlier and you get 75, 103, whatever those numbers are, 75 would actually, 18 plus that would be 93. No, can I do math? 75. Yeah, 93. I don't know why math is escaping me now. But yeah, would you maybe want them to leave earlier? I think that's an interesting point. Ariel, how do you think additional dollars will be spent recruiting other team sports NIL? That's a good question. I mean, Florida State's, that's actually a great question. I think what you've seen other programs do that have had success in the Big Ten and look at their staffs. Look how big, look at, we joke about it, but look at Florida's staff And now they have 1 billion more people on staff than Florida State does. And look at Alabama's staff and look at Georgia's and Ohio State's and look at some of the hires they've made. They're making head coaches into coordinators and stuff like that. Building out your staff, building out your facilities. Obviously, they're taking on the football only facility right now and should be open, August, September timeframe. But I think it's all of it, right? Like that additional money is used for everything. Some of it will trickle down. It will be great for other sports. Dick Hauser probably just needs to be rebuilt completely. It'll absolutely trickle into other sports and it'll be great for other sports as well. Let me show all and then scroll down here on some comments from when they were talking here, and then we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. I do think Alfred, this was a good one, Michael. I do want Alfred to come out with an oversized Publishers Clearinghouse check and then say, eat it, ACC in the memo line. Yeah, I saw somebody say cover 3 maybe. It'd be great if the Wake Forest coach has to like literally bring out a briefcase full of money after Florida State beats them at home this year. That would be, great. Tomcat, I don't know if I call it a Band-Aid on a pig. I don't know if that was in reference to something else or not. Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect fix, but it certainly helps. Like I agree with Chair Collins that it is a good thing for Florida State to get more money in the short term and be in this conference for less time. I don't know how many FSU fans see this as a win. It is absolutely benefits much more than it does the ACC. Yes, anybody who says this isn't a win for Florida State is just objectively being a hater, right? Like we all wear garnet gold colored glasses. I've gotten texts from Tennessee fans. I got a text from an NC State fan. I got a text from, fans of Miami that are in agreement with what Florida State has done. Like anybody who's saying this is not a win for Florida State is purely being a hater. We have been over the last, listen, as much as we're homers, we have been down about the things that have gone on around this program for the last 12 months more, right? Since last December, since the snub. Yeah. So do we always call it like Florida State's, gods of the universe and nothing ever bad is going to happen? I don't think so, man. We've been pretty down about a lot of things. But if you're watching what's happening right now and don't think this is a win for Florida State, then I really don't know what to tell you at this point. This was a massive win for Florida State to go from potentially owing $500 million to where in 2030 they could get out for $75 million. That is huge, huge. The webcam 15 feet from the desk was hilarious. I do have to say that. I'm hoping a realistic buyout with the Big Ten having one leg up on their TV deal at 2030 triggers the SEC also want to get in the game. Both of them offer. Yeah, I think pitting, roof one restoration. I think pitting them against each other is great. Which does Fox or ESPN want the Florida State property more? I don't really care what people say about, the SEC commissioner says this or the Big Ten commissioner says this or this. Who cares? Like ultimately, I think their power is somewhat limited based on what the TV networks want. So I completely agree. I feel like ESPN told the ACC to end this or they won't extend. Yeah, I agree. And that was even in the ESPN extension article. I don't have a way to just quickly share an article on here, but that was in the part of the extension, right? Get this settled up, get a settlement done. That's why this was just a procedural vote. All the presidents had already agreed to this. They already knew that ESPN wasn't going to sign the extension if this wasn't going to get settled. And so, yeah, ESPN definitely pulled the strings on this. Interesting, Pete Tham was the numbers for the exit fees. 165 in fiscal 2026 drops 18 million per year, with it only being 75 in 3031. I'm no lawyer, but I found it hard to believe that a document as lengthy and as complicated as the Grain of Rights, and that was amended several times, did not have any errors. Yeah, ultimately, I think that's why the ACC settled for what is a massive win for Florida State and Clemson, and let's be honest, Miami, North Carolina, any other programs that think they can get out and have a seat at the Power 2. How many teams have to agree to this before it can pass? I think it's a 3/4. I don't know if anybody will vote no, but this will pass. I'm not super concerned about this not passing. I think that it was already agreed to in principle when ESPN extended. Take some time for attorneys to write things up, get everything kind of buttoned up. But everything that's coming out right now was leaked by Ross Dellinger and David Hale and ESPN and all those people back when the ESPN extension happened, right before February 1st. So all of this was very well known that this was the road it was going to go down. And it took a month for them to get it all buttoned up and for it to be finalized. We're having the meetings here a month after the ESPN extension. So yeah, I mean, I would assume it's a 75%. I don't know if it's a 75% or a unanimous that needs to pass it, but I don't have any worries of it not passing the ACC. In fact, maybe it already has, as we're sitting here talking about this. It's a huge win. You wonder, right? So likely going to be smaller fee than even existed before. Yep. Pages 2 to 10 of the settlement are pure comedic gold. Herbie, if you want to send me that, we can ask Doug about it specifically. I don't know if you have that and you want to email it to me, tj@doublefriesnoslaw.com. If you're still in here watching, we'll get some of Doug's input on the legal side of things. It's a win for any schools that's able to leave the ACC and attract other bidders. FSU did most of the heavy lifting. This would have happened faster if UNC and Miami joined the suit. Yeah, I agree with that. Just like the last 20 years, FSU and Clemson have done all the heavy lifting in this conference. Last 30 years, Florida State and Clemson have done all the heavy lifting in this conference. People are saying, oh, North Carolina and Miami are the big winners today because they didn't have to go through all that, whatever, right? Like Florida State and Clemson have always been Miami and North Carolina and every other team in this conference have always benefited on what Florida State and Clemson has done. That's why we are in this situation that we're in right now. And so, yeah, for North Carolina and Miami and anybody else to kind of benefit from this, it doesn't shock me because they've been doing that for the last 20 and 30 years. Raymond getting out as new TV contracts are being approved by the Big Ten and SEC. Yep, same time frame, 2030. College football landscape changed so quickly. Will the settlement be relevant in 2030? I mean, I think so. I think it'll be relevant to my simple life there, just because that's when the next shift is really expected. Now, could Florida State and Clemson find themselves somewhere else before that? I still think that's entirely possible. But being able to get out when that next major shift of realignment is expected to happen is a big deal. So, yeah, I think so. All right, we have been going for a little over an hour. Again, 5 p.m. or so. It just depends on how long it takes to edit the video with Doug and then get it out to you. Should be live. So make sure you're subscribed. It feels like maybe some of the best news we've gotten around Florida State football since, I don't know, the Cal win. Were any of you even happy with that? Best news we've gotten in a long time. So a good day for Florida State. I think this was a massive win, a very big positive. T-shirt idea, not so ironclad. Maybe we'll throw that up on doublefriesnoslaw.com today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. You guys are awesome. You guys made this fun to do. Board of Trustees meetings, not usually super exciting. Obviously, this one was our exception. I don't know that we'll do too many more of these, maybe around 2028 when they actually vote to get out of this thing completely. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will talk to you soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the conversation with Doug that'll come out a little bit later. I'm sure he'll have some laughs. We'll have some fun with that. We will talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.